Ljubljansko-Barje consists of 163 square kilometers of swampy plain providing habitat for many species, including endangered animals and plants on its meadows, fields and hedgerows. It is a protected area of Natura 2000, while being declared landscape park in 2008. The river Iščica flows wearily across the Barje, which on this particular location was flowing into a large lake here 5,500 years ago. Ancestors placed their pile dwellings along the place at which the river joins the lake. There is a sign placed here, reminding us of their colonization. The location was a very interesting living area, since our ancestors placed their pile dwellings in the same place in the period of some 100 years. There were 40 settlements discovered at Ljubljansko-Barje. Two groups of pile dwellings at Ljubljansko-Barje entered the UNESCO's Global Heritage List in 2011, together with pile dwellings in Switzerland, France, Germany, Austria and Italy. The World Heritage List was also entered by the pile dwelling referred to as Maharski Prekop at Ig, which is one of the most researched pile dwellings on Ljubljansko-Barje. Between 1970 and 1977, the pile dwelling was investigated by archaeologist Professor Tatjana Bregant, and in 2005, a group of archaeologists from the Institute of Archaeology, SAZU, which has designated the year of settlement. It was colonized between 3514 and 3489 BC. Based on the research done by archaeologist Professor Tatjana Bregant, an exact replica of the pile dwelling has been made. The spectacular discovery of the oldest wooden wheel in the world, and especially its quality workmanship, convinced us that pile dwelling builders were much more advanced people than has hitherto been thought. The latest discoveries of the archaeologist Ph.D. Anton Velušček, published in the book Pile Dwellers and Discoveries, found by Slovenian archaeologists on the other pile dwellings on Ljubljansko-Barje, helped us assemble a mosaic of what the life of pile dwellers on Ljubljansko-Barje was like. Pile dwellers who colonized our lands 5,500 years ago were advanced and developed people. They were excellent wheelwrights, carpenters and metallurgists. They cultivated wheat, barley and flax on their fields and bred pigs, cattle, sheep and goats in wooden stockades. Upon their arrival, the newcomers found a large lake full of fish, which was surrounded by a swamp, which was impassable at least 3 months a year. They decided to place their housing on the lake. Pile dwelling on the water was a brilliant construction innovation that had many advantages and has been carefully planned. The pile dwelling Maharski Prekop was placed at the mouth of Iščica for several reasons. The riverbed of Iščica served as a moat, through which they were able to reach the land using a lifting bridge. A defensive fence was built along the riverbed, which additionally protected the pile dwelling from enemies and wild animals. There was also a storage room for weapons and a forge in this part of a pile dwelling. The defense part was additionally separated from the rest of the pile dwelling with a small bridge, which was removed in the event the enemy conquered the first part of the pile dwelling. A special part of a pile dwelling were large platforms and an additional coating of houses, as well as roofs with bark of birch, white poplar and aspen. In this way, they further isolated their homes. Pile dwellings on Ljubljansko-Barje were built on the so-called heliometric axle, which allows optimal use of the sun, which is especially important in winter. Ph.D. Tatjana Bregant discovered 5 houses on the pile dwelling that have all been built differently. The walls were made of logs interconnected with willow branches in a basket, wicker-work kind of a way. They were coated with a layer of a clay and debris. They used canoes for transport on the river, which were their main means of transport. Their length was measured up to 12 meters, while there was a 19-meter-long canoe found on Ljubljansko barje. All the products and wood for the maintenance of the pile dwelling was smoothly transported on the river. They were excellent wheelwrights, as evidenced by the sensational discovery of the oldest wooden wheel with an axle in the world on the Stare Gmajne at Verde pile dwelling. It is 5,150 years old. The wheel was discovered on 29th of March 2002 by a group of archaeologists of the Institute of Archaeology SAZU Ljubljana. More surprising than its age is its top-quality production. The wheel was composed of 2 ash planks joined together with 4 oak wooden battens. Battens in their cross-section are constructed in the form of a dovetail and in the length into a conus. A dove bond constructed this way allowed the planks to be joined firmly despite contractions and expansion of the wood. The wheel had a square hub in the middle, in which a well-fit end of the axle was inserted, revolving along with the wheel. The importance of the discovery of the wheel is indicated by the fact that the wheel began to be used in our country approximately at the same time as in Mesopotamia. The invention of the wheel signified a veritable revolution in the transport. This means that pile dwellers possessed the most advanced technology of the time. They cultivated wheat, barley and flax on fields and bred pigs, cattle, sheep and goats in wooden stockades. They wove fabric from flax on simple loops, which they colored with natural dyes. They used this fabric for making clothes, which they decorated properly. They also made ropes, which were used in the construction of pile dwellings. They used clay for making a variety of dishes, which they also decorated nicely. They used a round stone when making the dishes. Then they burned the dishes made by stacking them on a pile together with the branches, covered them up with soil and burnt them. The dishes thus become firm enough for everyday use. Fishing was an important source of nutrition. They exercised fishing activities using barriers, wicker fish traps and nets. Special one among them was a harpoon with a wooden tip on a line and float hook, which were found on Ljubljansko barje. Hunting was not only important because of the food, but mainly because of the skin. They were used for making warm clothes, which protected pile dwellers from the cold and winter. They threw nothing away. They used bones for making various tools, needles and decorative items. They hunted larger animals in groups, since it would be difficult for an individual pile dweller to handle a bear with a simple tool. At the Maharski Prekop pile dwelling, they also found melting dishes with copper residues. Inhabitants of that time dug copper ore, melted it, and used copper for making weapons and tools. Eventually, they began to mix alloys, and the decline of pile dwelling on Ljubljansko barje, they were already familiar with bronze, from which quality products were made. From the period just before the decline of pile dwellings, Karel Dešman found quality made and shaped dagger on one of the pile dwellings near Studenec at Ik, which their contemporary pharaoh would gladly wear.